Welcome to this module on listening skills and the first lesson on how we need to listen without prejudice. Now, why is this so important? Well, it is the most important of all the communication skills. Yes, it's important to be able to write well and to have good body language skills and all the other communication skills we need. But without listening, no other listening or no other communication skill makes sense. And the challenge is we all think we're very good at it. It's one of those things like driving. 80% of people think they're better than an average driver. Well, statistically, that's just not possible. And many people think they're good listeners because they think that what we need to do is a bit like the woman in the picture, is just sit there and nod our heads and show people we're paying attention. But is that really the key listening skill we need? Have you ever had a conversation that goes a little bit like this? Someone gets a call, says, that was the doctor calling. They say my test is negative. The original test they made was obviously a mistake and I'm fine. And then the husband or partner look up and say, but you don't really seem that pleased about that. And yeah, that's because in a weird way I'm a little bit disappointed. And I said, well, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. But I kind of geared myself up for the worst and I was expecting the worst. But you're okay. Surely that's a good thing. Yeah, but I was really... you just don't understand. And you say, no, I don't understand. You should be happy. Why on earth are you upset with this? So these conversations happen all the time. And the reason they happen is because we are listening. We are hearing what the person is saying. But we're listening with a view to judge what we hear. So most times when we're listening, we're trying to determine if we agree or not with what the person is saying. And then we start formulating our potential reply based on whether we agree or not. If we agree, all well and good, we say, yeah, you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. What a terrible thing. If we don't, then we start to argue our case. But you haven't thought of this, and what about this, and what about that? And at the end of that conversation, it's usually very unlikely that anybody has changed their point of view. So the first thing we need to understand when we look at listening is we have to go back to the brilliant album title that George Michael had a few years ago, which was To Listen Without Prejudice. We've got to try and listen to what the person is thinking and feeling, and in some ways validate what they are saying. Now, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next lesson, but that doesn't mean to say we agree with someone. It just means we can understand their point of view. So this is not the best approach. The one we've just seen, where we listen and we're judging and we're formulating our own response, is not really going to get us great conversations. So what I want you to do between now and the next lesson is to just think about some recent conversations you've had and pick one or two where you think it didn't go particularly well. It went more along the lines of the little cartoon that we've just seen than any other conversation. And then try and see if you can remember exactly what was said. What did the other party say? How did you reply? How did they reply back to you? Etc. And then can you see, were there any of the mistakes we just saw in the cartoon? Were you both listening to judge, and can you see where the conversation went wrong? Now, in the next session, I'm going to talk to you about a 6-part process that allows you not to fall into that trap. But first of all, we have to see that we are falling into that trap. So go back and have a look at some of the conversations you've had recently, mentally replay them, and see if you can figure out what was said and where some of the major pitfalls were that maybe you fell into. And then we'll take a look in the next module at how we can do this in a more effective way.